9 years of being invisible. That's what Mia Rodriguez felt as she sat in her wheelchair, watching the empty cafeteria at Sterling Technologies' executive floor. The afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's financial district. It was 1:15 p.m. Lunch had ended 15 minutes ago, but here she was again, forgotten. Her small fingers moved across the sketchbook, balanced on her lap, adding delicate shading to a monarch butterfly's wings. Around her, the 47th floor hummed with the quiet efficiency of a building that never slept. Somewhere in the corner office, her mother was in another meeting, making decisions that would ripple through global markets. But Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Technologies, had forgotten to arrange pickup for her 9-year-old daughter. Again. The sound of wheels on marble made Mia look up. A man in navy coveralls pushed a maintenance cart through the entrance. He was mid-30s, with gentle brown eyes and careful movements of someone who'd learned to navigate spaces where he didn't belong. The scent of industrial cleaner mixed with lingering lunch aromas. Marcus Thompson had been working at Sterling Technologies for 8 months. Since his biomedical engineering career collapsed and single fatherhood forced him to accept whatever job offered health insurance, he'd perfected the art of invisible competence. He'd gone from designing life-saving medical devices to cleaning conference rooms where such devices were bought and sold. But something about this scene struck him as wrong. A child alone, in a wheelchair, drawing with professional intensity. The executive cafeteria had been empty for 15 minutes. Where was her guardian? Marcus approached slowly. "Hey there, you doing okay?" Mia startled, her blue eyes wide with surprise. Intelligence sparkled there, but underneath lay something no child should carry, the weary acceptance of abandonment. "Oh, hi. Yes, I'm fine. Cafeteria's been closed for a while," Marcus observed gently. "Mrs. Chen had an emergency with another child," Mia explained, her tone rehearsed. "She'll return soon. People sometimes forget I'm here." The casual way she said it, "People sometimes forget I'm here," hit Marcus like a physical blow, as if being overlooked was simply another law of nature. Marcus pulled out a chair, sitting at her eye level. "I'm Marcus. I work here maintaining the building. What's your name?" "Mia." She gestured toward her sketchbook. "I was completing this migration study. Did you know monarchs travel over 3,000 miles? Marcus leaned closer, genuinely impressed by the scientific accuracy and artistic skill. "I didn't know that. This artwork is extraordinary, Mia." Something shifted in Mia's expression, perhaps surprised that an adult was examining her work rather than just acknowledging her wheelchair. "Thank you," she said softly. "Most people don't really look." "Well, I'm looking now." They talked about butterfly migration patterns, about how creatures weighing less than a paperclip could navigate continental distances. Mia's face grew animated as she shared knowledge about wing-loading ratios in magnetic field navigation. When Mrs. Chen finally returned, breathless with apologies, Marcus watched them depart with a heavy heart. As they reached the doorway, Mia turned back and offered him a smile. Small, uncertain, but genuine. That night, lying in his cramped Queens apartment after tucking 7-year-old Grace into bed, Marcus couldn't release those words from his mind. People sometimes forget I'm here. He understood that particular loneliness. 3 years ago, after Sarah died in that Chicago hotel fire, after medical bills consumed their savings, after his engineering firm eliminated his position, Marcus had become invisible too. Former colleagues suddenly didn't return calls. Neighbors found urgent errands when they saw him coming. The next day, Marcus found himself taking a different route during lunch. There was Mia positioned by the windows, her wheelchair angled away from clusters of other children. Her sketchbook displayed a fresh butterfly. Marcus had prepared an extra sandwich. "Mind if I join you? The maintenance break room smells like disinfectant and despair." Mia's laugh was like silver bells. "Only if you want to learn about complete metamorphosis." That's exactly what I want to learn about. This became their daily routine. Marcus discovered that Mia had cerebral palsy affecting her mobility, but leaving her brilliant mind intact. She dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, could recite Latin names for dozens of species, read at college level despite being only 9. He also learned that her mother was Victoria Sterling herself, whose face graced magazine covers, who'd built Sterling Technologies into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Mom's extremely important, Mia mentioned one afternoon. She has meetings across continents. She's revolutionizing technology. She must be very proud of you, Marcus said carefully. Mia's pencil paused. She is. She tells me so, but she's constantly traveling, always in meetings. She says she's building my future. Marcus understood that drive. After Sarah's death, he'd buried himself in work, believing provision was enough, until Grace asked if he was sad because she wasn't good enough to make him happy. That's when he realized presence mattered more. Tell me more about these migration patterns, Marcus suggested. Over 3 weeks, Marcus found himself anticipating those lunch conversations. Mia was brilliant and funny, carrying wisdom from observing life from its margins. You're an excellent father, Mia said one day, unprompted. What makes you think that? Because you actually see people, really see them. Not everyone possesses that ability. 3 weeks into their friendship, Marcus noticed something different about Mia when he arrived for lunch. The poster had appeared that Monday, Father-Daughter Dance Friday, October 18th. Marcus had seen it while emptying waste receptacles and thought of Grace, who'd been discussing it for weeks. Daddy, you're going to dance with me, right? Grace had asked. Everyone's father's attending. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Grace Bug. But that afternoon when Marcus sat with Mia, he recognized something was wrong. Her sandwich remained untouched. Her sketchbook stayed closed. Her eyes held the redness of suppressed tears. Hey, butterfly expert, what's troubling you? Mia attempted a smile that wavered dangerously. Nothing. I'm fine. Mia, she exhaled shakily. The father-daughter dance is Friday. Yes, Grace has been discussing it constantly. My mother arranged for someone to accompany me, a professional companion. Mia's voice grew thick. Someone who'll wheel my chair around while I sit there like decoration, like someone's charitable obligation. Marcus felt his chest constrict. Where's your mother? Tokyo, major acquisition meeting. She can't return in time. Mia picked at her sketchbook. It's acceptable. I'm accustomed to it. Marcus studied this brilliant, extraordinary girl who'd spent her existence accepting crumbs when she deserved celebration. He thought about Grace, glowing with anticipation. He thought about Mia, who would spend the evening being managed by a stranger. The decision crystallized. Mia, I have a suggestion. She looked up, curious, despite her sadness. What if you joined Grace and me as friends? 3 makes it a real party, doesn't it? Mia's eyes widened. But I can't actually dance. And wouldn't Grace mind sharing you? Let me handle Grace. You just bring those butterfly drawings to show her. She loves artwork. Marcus leaned forward earnestly. This isn't charity. This is friendship. You've spent weeks teaching me about metamorphosis and listening to me complain about broken equipment. That's what friends do. Mia's eyes filled with tears, hope instead of resignation. You truly mean that? I absolutely mean that. Yes, she whispered, I'd love to join you. That evening, Marcus faced an unexpected challenge. 7-year-old Grace sat at their kitchen table, chocolate milk decorating her lip. She was his world. Sarah's eyes, Sarah's laugh, Sarah's fearless embrace of life. Grace Bug, I want to discuss something important. Grace nodded enthusiastically. About Friday's dance. I selected my purple dress with sparkles. Excellent choice. There's a girl where I work named Mia. She creates amazing butterfly artwork, and she's intelligent and funny. But she doesn't have anyone for the dance. Her mother has to work. Marcus held his breath, prepared for disappointment. Instead, Grace's face illuminated. Mia, who sits by the tall windows? The girl with the wheelchair who draws beautiful pictures? Marcus blinked, astonished. You know her? Of course. She's in Mrs. Patterson's class next to mine. She's brilliant. I've always wanted to talk to her. Grace bounced excitedly. Can she really come with us? Can she teach me about butterflies? Relief washed over Marcus. I believe she'd love that. This is going to be the most wonderful dance ever. I'm going to create her a friendship bracelet with all the colors. As Grace ran to her room to begin crafting, Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. Friday evening arrived with anticipation's weight. Marcus had pressed his decent shirt, polished his worn shoes, tried not to think about how he'd appear beside fathers in expensive suits. Tonight wasn't about him. It was about two girls who deserved to feel celebrated. The elevator ride to Sterling Technologies' executive floors seemed endless. Grace chattered nervously, clutching a gift bag containing the friendship bracelet she'd perfected. The space alone dwarfed Marcus's entire apartment, with marble floors reflecting crystal chandeliers. Wow, Grace breathed. It's like a palace. A woman in medical scrubs answered their inquiry, presumably the aide Victoria had arranged. Good evening. How can I assist you? I'm Marcus Thompson. I'm here to collect Mia for the father-daughter dance. The woman's confusion deepened. There must be misunderstanding. Mrs. Sterling arranged for me to accompany Mia. Plans changed, Marcus said firmly but politely. Mia's attending with friends tonight. The aide hesitated, uncertain how to handle this deviation. Mia, there are visitors here for you. Mia appeared, and Marcus's heart expanded. She wore a flowing purple gown that made her look like royalty, her blonde hair curled and secured with butterfly barrettes. Her face glowed with nervous excitement. You came, she whispered, as though she'd half expected disappointment. I always honor my promises. Butterfly expert. Grace stepped forward, suddenly shy but determined. She held out the friendship bracelet woven from multiple colored threads. I made this for you. We're going to have the most amazing time. Mia's eyes filled with tears as Grace fastened the bracelet around her wrist. Thank you so much. I absolutely love it. Riverside Elementary's gymnasium had been transformed into magic. Twinkling string lights crisscrossed the ceiling, paper stars hung at varying heights, and upbeat music played from a corner stage. Fathers in expensive suits spun their daughters across the floor, the air filled with laughter and joy. Marcus immediately felt displaced in his faded shirt and discount tie. Several fathers glanced in his direction, their gazes moving from his working-class appearance to Mia's wheelchair, with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity. But Mia didn't notice the stares. She was absorbed in the decorations, the music, the sheer enchantment. This is absolutely beautiful, she breathed. Grace wheeled Mia toward the refreshment table, both girls giggling over cookies decorated to resemble dancing shoes. Marcus remained in the background, watching them interact with children's effortless acceptance. When the DJ announced the first father-daughter dance, Marcus's stomach contracted. This was the moment of truth. He approached both girls confidently. All right, ladies, Grace Bug, you're first. Marcus led Grace onto the floor. The song was appropriately sentimental, and he spun his daughter in gentle circles, making her laugh when he dipped her dramatically. For those 3 minutes, the world contracted to just him and his little girl. When the song ended, Grace hugged him fiercely. Best father ever. Right back at you. Best daughter ever. Then Marcus turned to Mia, who sat at the dance floor's edge, watching with an expression that tried for happiness, but couldn't quite hide the longing. Her hands were folded in her lap, her purple gown arranged perfectly. Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, meeting her eyes directly. Your turn, princess. Mia's breath caught audibly. But I can't really dance. Trust me, Marcus said, certainty surprising even him. I have a plan. He'd spent 3 evenings researching adaptive dance techniques, determining how to make this work. Marcus positioned himself behind Mia's wheelchair while Grace moved to her side, taking her hand with childhood's natural ease. Ready? Marcus asked. Mia nodded, not trusting her voice. The music began, something slow and dreamy, and Marcus started wheeling Mia across the floor in graceful, sweeping arcs, timing movements perfectly to the rhythm. Grace walked beside them, holding Mia's hand and spinning in small circles. Other dancers paused to observe, but Marcus didn't care. He was completely focused on the girl in the wheelchair, ensuring every movement was smooth, every turn perfectly timed. Then he moved to face Mia, took both her hands gently, and showed her how to move her arms in rhythm while he swayed her chair in gentle patterns. Grace joined in, and suddenly Mia was dancing with her upper body, her face transforming from uncertainty to pure, radiant joy. I'm dancing, Mia gasped, her voice breaking with emotion. I'm actually dancing. The music shifted to something upbeat, and Marcus spun the wheelchair in careful turns while both girls laughed with delight. Other children began gathering around, not with pity but with genuine fascination. Amazing moves, Mia, a boy called out. Can I dance with you all? A girl asked. Yes, Mia said, her voice ringing with happiness. Everyone can dance. Soon a circle formed around them, children moving together in inclusion's unconscious rhythm. Marcus looked down at Mia's face, flushed with happiness, eyes bright with joyful tears, and felt something crack open in his chest. This was what mattered, not engineering degrees or corner offices. This moment, this joy, this simple act of seeing someone who needed to be seen. The music swelled, the children cheered, and Mia threw her arms around Marcus's neck, whispering through tears, Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus hugged her back, his vision blurring. Thank you for letting me. None of them noticed the woman standing in the gymnasium's doorway, still wearing a business suit from her emergency flight, tears streaming down her face as she watched a stranger give her daughter what all her billions couldn't provide. Victoria Sterling had been en route to Tokyo when the call came, 35,000 feet above the Pacific, surrounded by leather and crystal in her private jet. She'd been reviewing acquisition documents when her assistant's call pierced through her concentration. Mr. Sterling, I'm calling about Mia. There's been an unexpected change regarding the dance. Victoria's attention snapped from quarterly projections to something infinitely more important. What kind of change? Is she safe? She's perfectly safe. But she's not attending with our arranged companion. She's going with the building maintenance worker and his daughter. The words didn't compute initially. Maintenance worker? What do you mean? Apparently, they've developed a friendship. Mia specifically requested to attend with them. Victoria's first instinct was panic, then anger. Who was this man? She'd paid for professional care, for someone qualified to handle Mia's needs. But then came the guilt, crashing over her like a wave. The dance was tonight. She was halfway to Tokyo for an acquisition that had consumed months of preparation. She'd arranged for someone to take her daughter because she couldn't rearrange her schedule for one evening. The decision formed without conscious deliberation. Turn the aircraft around. Ma'am, cancel the Tokyo acquisition. Turn around immediately. I'm going home. 90 minutes later, Victoria stood outside Riverside Elementary, her mind racing with prepared confrontations. She'd forfeited a $2 billion deal without hesitation, requested emergency landing at Newark, and driven straight to the school in her designer suit. The guilt of missing the dance entirely had been consuming her for weeks, but this situation was unacceptable. Nobody took her daughter anywhere without authorization. Except when Victoria reached the gymnasium doors and looked inside, the angry words evaporated completely. There was Mia, her Mia, dancing. Not being wheeled around by a paid professional, not sitting on sidelines observing, actually dancing. Her arms moved in perfect rhythm with music Victoria could hear through the glass. Her face glowed with happiness Victoria hadn't witnessed in how long? Months? Years? And the man facilitating this miracle wasn't some predator. He was clearly a father himself. His movements demonstrated careful precision of someone accustomed to handling precious things. Another little girl danced beside them, holding Mia's hand, laughing together as if they'd been friends forever. Other children had gathered around them, drawn not by pity but by joy's pure magnetism. Mia was the center of attention, not as the disabled child, simply as a girl at a dance, experiencing the time of her life. Victoria's carefully constructed composure shattered completely. When was the last time she'd witnessed Mia laugh like that? When was the last time she'd been present enough to notice what brought her daughter genuine happiness? She couldn't remember, and that realization broke something fundamental inside her chest. Victoria Sterling had built an empire from nothing. She transformed a college startup into a multi-billion-dollar corporation, negotiated with world leaders, commanded respect in male-dominated rooms. She could move markets with single statements and bend entire industries to her vision. But she couldn't give her own daughter what this maintenance worker, this stranger, had given her in one evening. The simple gift of being seen, of being celebrated, of mattering to someone. The song ended and Mia threw her arms around the man's neck, saying something Victoria couldn't hear but could read in the gratitude radiating from her daughter's entire body. That's when Mia spotted her through the glass doors. "Mommy!" Mia's face somehow managed to brighten even more. "Mommy, you came! Look, I'm dancing!" Every head in the gymnasium turned toward Victoria. She was suddenly painfully aware of the spectacle she presented. Still in her designer business suit, diamond earrings catching gymnasium lights, expensive perfume clinging to silk. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who belonged in boardrooms, not school dances. But she moved toward her daughter anyway, her heels clicking on polished floor, the crowd parting before her the way crowds always did for people with money and power. Up close, the maintenance worker was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s perhaps, with kind brown eyes and work-calloused hands that spoke of honest labor. He straightened when he saw her approaching, his expression shifting to something between apology and quiet dignity. "Mrs. Sterling," he said quietly, "I apologize if I overstepped boundaries. Mia mentioned you couldn't attend, and I simply thought—" "You thought she deserved a dance," Victoria interrupted, her voice cracking despite her attempt at control. "You thought she deserved more than a paid companion." She looked at Mia, radiant in her purple gown, still glowing from the dance. "You thought she deserved to be just a little girl at a dance." The maintenance worker, Marcus, her assistant, had said, met her eyes directly. "Every child deserves that." Victoria felt tears threatening again, right here in front of everyone. She, who never cried at board meetings or during hostile negotiations, who prided herself on unshakable composure, was falling apart in a middle school gymnasium. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "No thanks necessary. Mia's an exceptional child." Mia wheeled forward, taking Victoria's manicured hand in her small one. "Mom, this is Marcus. He has lunch with me every day at the office. And this is Grace. She's my new best friend." Every day. He had lunch with Mia every day, and Victoria didn't even know. Didn't know her daughter ate lunch alone, that this man had been providing for her child while she was halfway around the world closing deals. The shame was suffocating. Victoria knelt down, difficult in her pencil skirt and heels, and looked at Mia properly for what felt like the first time in months. Really looked at her, at the purple gown she'd chosen herself. At the butterfly barrettes Victoria had never seen before. At the friendship bracelet on her wrist, clearly handmade with love. At the pure joy still shining in her eyes. "You look absolutely beautiful, darling," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry I almost missed this." "But you're here now," Mia said, and her forgiveness was immediate, unconditional. "That's what matters." Is it, Victoria thought, or is it too little, too late? She stood, turning back to Marcus with words tumbling out before she could think them through. Would you, would you and Grace join us for dinner this weekend? Please. I'd like to properly thank you. And she glanced at Mia, who looked hopeful. "I'd like to know the people who've been there for my daughter when I wasn't." Marcus hesitated, his eyes dropping to his worn shoes, clearly uncomfortable with her wealth and gratitude. "Mrs. Sterling, that's really not necessary." "It is necessary," Victoria said firmly. "At least it's necessary for me." "We'd be honored," Marcus said finally. As the dance continued and Victoria watched Marcus spin both girls around the floor again, she realized something fundamental had shifted tonight. She'd spent years building a fortress of success around herself and Mia, believing money could solve everything. But this maintenance worker had walked through all her defenses with nothing but kindness and presence, and Victoria suddenly wanted to understand how he'd done it. The following Saturday, Victoria found herself in unfamiliar territory, her own kitchen. The chef had prepared the lasagna, but Victoria had insisted on making the salad herself, on setting the table with her own hands. When the doorbell rang at 7 o'clock precisely, Victoria discovered herself nervous in a way that boardroom presentations had never made her. Marcus and Grace stood on her doorstep, both dressed in their finest clothes, clothes that still appeared modest against the marble and gold of her foyer. "You came," Victoria said, echoing Mia's words from the dance. "Wouldn't miss it," Grace replied with 7-year-old confidence, then gasped as she took in the chandelier overhead. "Your house is like a fairy tale." Dinner was served in the smaller dining room. Victoria had changed into jeans and a cashmere sweater, attempting to bridge the gap between their worlds, though she could still feel the distance in every exchange glance. The food was excellent, the conversation polite, but Victoria felt the strain of existing in a space where she didn't know how to be authentic. How did you relate to a maintenance worker? How did you connect with someone whose entire annual salary wouldn't cover one of her quarterly bonuses? But then Grace accidentally knocked over her water glass, and instead of mortified silence Victoria expected, Marcus simply laughed and helped clean the spill, while Mia giggled and Grace blushed. And somehow, in that moment of perfectly normal family chaos, the walls began to lower. After dinner, while the girls played in Mia's room, Victoria found herself alone with Marcus in her sitting room, pouring coffee from a silver service that suddenly seemed absurdly ornate. "I need to apologize," she said without preamble. "For what?" "For not being present, for arranging for someone to take Mia, instead of moving heaven and earth to be there myself, for not knowing she ate lunch alone every day." Victoria's voice grew sharp with self-recrimination. "I'm her mother. I should be her entire world. And instead, a stranger." "I'm not a stranger anymore," Marcus interrupted gently. "And neither are you. You're here now. That's what matters." Victoria set down her coffee cup with trembling hands. "Is it? Because when I watched you two dancing last night, I realized something devastating. I don't truly know my own daughter. I don't know her favorite song, what makes her laugh, what she dreams about. I ask her about school and she says, fine, and I accept it because I'm relieved I don't have to dig deeper." The admission hung between them like an indictment. "Do you know what I realized tonight?" Victoria continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "When Mia was showing Grace her butterfly collection, Grace knew every single one of Mia's interests. They've spent maybe 6 hours together total, and your daughter knows mine better than I do." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those kind brown eyes. You know what I see when I look at you, Victoria? I see someone who's terrified. The observation struck like lightning. Terrified of what? Of stillness, of being present, of the possibility that all your success, all your achievements, might not be enough to compensate for what you perceive as your failures. Victoria's breath caught. And what is it I can't provide? The ability to change the past, Marcus said gently. But that's not what Mia needs from you. She needs you to see that she's perfect exactly as she is. She needs you to stop trying to build a future where her wheelchair won't matter and start celebrating the present where she's brilliant and kind and extraordinary because of everything she's experienced. The truth of his words was like surgery, clean and precise and devastating. I don't know how to do that, Victoria admitted. I don't know how to simply exist. I've been running toward the next achievement for so long, I don't know how to stop and appreciate what's right in front of me. Marcus leaned forward, his voice earnest. 3 years ago, I lost my wife in a hotel fire, random, senseless, completely beyond control. For months afterward, I buried myself in work, trying to outrun grief, trying to provide for Grace in every way except the one that mattered most. He paused, the memory still painful. Then one night, Grace asked me if I was sad because she wasn't good enough to make me happy. That's when I realized she didn't need a provider. She needed a father who was present, who saw her, who chose to be fully engaged in each moment instead of always planning for the next achievement. Victoria felt tears threatening again. How did you learn to do that? By showing up, by making small choices every day to be present instead of absent, by asking questions and actually listening to answers, by letting Grace teach me what mattered to her instead of assuming I knew. He met her eyes directly. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done, choosing to be fully present when everything in me wanted to run toward the next task, the next accomplishment, the next proof that I was managing everything. But it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Victoria stared at her hands, at manicured nails and jewelry worth more than most people's annual salaries. Would you help me? Not with Mia's care. I have excellent people for that. But with learning how to see her, how to be present. I'm skilled at running companies, terrible at being a mother. And you're... She struggled for words. You're exceptional at this, at seeing people. Would you teach me? It was an extraordinary request. A billionaire CEO asking a maintenance worker to teach her how to be human. But Marcus looked past the wealth and power to the frightened mother underneath and nodded. Yes, I can do that. Relief flooded Victoria's face. I'll compensate you. No. Marcus's voice was firm but not unkind. This isn't a transaction. Friends help friends. That's all. Victoria smiled through her tears. Friends. I'd like that very much. Over the following months, Victoria's life began changing in small revolutionary ways. She started leaving work at 5 o'clock on Fridays, collecting both Mia and Grace from school for park visits that stretched into dinner. Marcus taught her the art of asking meaningful questions. Not how was school, but what was the best part of your day? What made you laugh? She learned to embrace silence instead of filling every moment with productivity. She discovered that Mia's favorite color wasn't simply purple, but specifically the shade that monarch butterfly wings displayed in certain light. She learned that her daughter dreamed of swimming with whale sharks someday, that she had memorized scientific names for 47 different marine species. Most importantly, she learned to be completely present in moments instead of always managing toward the next meeting, the next deal, the next milestone. 6 months after the dance, Victoria found herself in an unprecedented situation, anticipating the end of workdays. She and Marcus had developed an easy friendship built on shared devotion to their daughters and mutual respect for each other's intelligence. And they were both carefully not acknowledging the attraction growing between them. It began with small things. How Victoria's laugh made Marcus feel hopeful about possibilities he'd stopped imagining. How Marcus's steady presence made Victoria feel less alone in the world. How their conversations had begun extending longer, covering everything from the girls' education to their own losses and dreams. One evening in March, they were walking behind the girls at Central Park, watching Mia and Grace feed ducks while discussing elaborate plans involving butterfly gardens and marine biology experiments. The late afternoon sun painted everything golden, and Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete contentment with exactly where she was. "I've been thinking," Marcus said quietly. "About what?" "About how different our lives are. About how this," he gestured between them, around them, "shouldn't work on paper. You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a maintenance worker rebuilding his life." Victoria's heart sank. She'd been anticipating this conversation, dreading it. And I can't stop thinking that maybe those differences don't matter as much as I thought they did." She looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" Marcus stopped walking, forcing her to face him directly. "I'm saying that 6 months ago, I was convinced the distance between our worlds was unbridgeable. I'm saying that you've become the best part of my day. I'm saying that I'm falling for you, Victoria, and I'm terrified because I don't understand how this could possibly work. But I can't pretend I don't feel it anymore." Victoria felt her breath catch. She'd been carrying the same feelings, the same fears, the same impossible hope. "Marcus, I know it's insane," he continued. "I know people would think I'm after your money or that you're slumming with the help. I know our lives don't make sense together on paper, but I also know that you make me laugh, that you're brilliant and driven and learning to be present in ways that inspire me. I know that Mia lights up when you enter a room now, and Grace thinks you hung the moon." He took a breath. "I know that when I imagine my future, I can't picture it without you in it." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? Not a maintenance worker. I see a man who sacrificed everything for his daughter, who saw my invisible child and made her visible, who taught me how to be a mother again, who makes me laugh and challenges me to improve and doesn't care about my job title or my bank account." She reached up, touching his face gently. "I've built my entire life around control, around managing outcomes and eliminating variables. But you make me want to take the biggest risk I've ever taken." "What risk?" "Believing that this could work. Believing that love might actually be enough to bridge the gap between our worlds." When Marcus kissed her, right there in Central Park with their daughters feeding ducks 20 feet away, it felt like coming home to a place Victoria had never known she'd been searching for. But their path wasn't without challenges. 3 months later, Victoria faced the biggest crisis of her professional career when her CFO, Richard Martinez, attempted a hostile takeover, using her increased work-life balance as evidence of diminished leadership capacity. The emergency board meeting was called for a Friday afternoon. Victoria sat in the conference room, surrounded by men in expensive suits who questioned whether a CEO who left work early to attend school events could effectively lead a multi-billion-dollar corporation. "The numbers don't lie," Richard announced, projecting quarterly reports. "Sterling Technologies has shown decreased growth since Victoria began this lifestyle experiment." Victoria felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. But as she prepared to defend herself, Marcus appeared in the conference room doorway, still wearing his maintenance coveralls. "Excuse me," he said quietly, addressing the board. "I believe I can provide some relevant perspective." Richard laughed dismissively. "And you are?" "Someone who understands the technical infrastructure this company depends on," Marcus replied calmly. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he began explaining the flaws in Richard's financial projections with the precision of someone who understood complex systems at a fundamental level. "Your growth calculations ignore the platform stability improvements implemented over the past 6 months. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. You're measuring short-term revenue fluctuation against long-term infrastructure investment. Any competent engineer could tell you that sustainable growth requires— Who exactly are you? The board chairman interrupted. Dr. Marcus Thompson, former lead biomedical engineer at MedTech Innovations, current maintenance supervisor at Sterling Technologies, and someone who's watched Victoria Sterling learn to balance visionary leadership with sustainable practices. The room fell silent. Victoria stared at Marcus in amazement, not just because of his hidden credentials, but because he'd risked everything to defend her. Marcus turned to the board. You want to know about leadership? Real leadership is someone who can recognize when their approach isn't working and have the courage to change. Victoria didn't become a worse CEO when she started leaving early on Fridays. She became a better human being, and better human beings make better leaders. The vote was close, but Victoria retained her position. Afterward, as the boardroom emptied, she faced Marcus with tears in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me about your background? Marcus looked down at his hands. Because I was afraid you'd see me differently, afraid you'd think I was hiding things or had ulterior motives. I wanted you to care about who I am now, not who I used to be. Victoria took his hands in hers. I care about all of it, your past, your present, your future, but mostly I care that you stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. 8 months later, Marcus proposed during another father-daughter dance, this one at Grace's school. But when the DJ called for the traditional father-daughter dance, Marcus extended his hand not just to Grace, but to Mia as well. May I have this dance, ladies? As he spun them both around the floor, Grace in her bright blue dress and Mia radiant in purple, Victoria watched from the sidelines and felt her heart expand to accommodate a happiness she hadn't known was possible. When Marcus dropped to one knee right there on the dance floor, pulling out a simple ring that had cost him 3 months of salary, both girls squealed with delight. Victoria Sterling, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gymnasium. Will you marry me? Will you let me be not just Mia's borrowed father, but her real one? Will you build a life with me where presence matters more than profits and love matters more than anything else? Through her tears, Victoria said yes. The wedding was held in the garden of the Sterling estate 6 months later, simple and elegant, with Mia as maid of honor and Grace as flower girl. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, Mia called out, I object to waiting any longer for cake, and brought down the house. 2 years later, baby James Marcus Sterling Thompson entered the world, screaming and perfect, and immediately beloved by 2 big sisters who couldn't wait to teach him about butterflies and marine biology and the importance of seeing people who might otherwise remain invisible. As Victoria held her son in the hospital room, watching Marcus help Mia and Grace take turns gently touching the baby's tiny fingers, she thought about transformation, about how butterflies emerge from their cocoons, not despite the struggle, but because of it, about how the most beautiful changes often came from the most unexpected places. We all transformed, Mia whispered, her voice full of wonder as she looked at her new baby brother. Like butterflies. We broke out of our cocoons together. Victoria smiled, understanding finally that the greatest success of her life hadn't been built in a boardroom or measured in quarterly reports. It had been constructed in lunch hours and dance floors and small moments of choosing presence over productivity, love over loneliness, connection over control. Outside the hospital window, Manhattan hummed with its endless ambition and restless energy. But inside room 314, the Sterling Thompson family had discovered something more valuable than any empire. They had found each other, and they would never stop dancing.